Hello and welcome to episode number one of JRock Presents. I'm your host, Jason JRock Houston, and with us today we have Midnight Vice lead vocalist Tyler Gray. Is that the name, Tyler?
That's the grid. I think so. That's what they call
Okay.
me.
I got to tell you, the name Midnight Vice. When I heard that, and again, this will teach people to kind of judge things. I thought maybe, without even seeing a picture of the band or going on the site, oh, maybe it's a glam band, maybe it's, a hard rock band. And anyways, of course, I go on your site, the YouTube page, and check out some of the videos. First thing I checked out was Enforced Video, and I tell you, you guys really come across well, you are an old school metal band, and I hear a lot of, correct me if I'm wrong, Maiden influence.
Yeah. There's a lot of different traditional elements in there. I think that we're all.
I would say Sabbath, maybe.
I would say, yeah, the Iron Maiden influence, the Judas Priest influence. I think a lot of that primarily bleeds through. I think a lot of people pick up on that.
Old school metal. I
Yeah,
guess.
we get some. A lot of people say they hear some glam stuff too, which makes sense because we like that stuff too. So it all kind of comes from a bunch of different places, you know.
And you guys are from Florida, of course. I think Tampa, Florida. Is there much of a metal scene there these days?
Yeah, there's a pretty prominent metal scene here. Maybe not for the traditional stuff that we do, but as far as, the death metal and whatnot, that's kind of what we're famous for. Florida's the death
So
metal
let me
capital.
ask you, with that being said, do most of your live shows like in your hometown, or do you tour, in different states?
We don't tour all that much. We just don't really feel too comfortable touring off of just an EP, so we're kind
Sure.
of waiting for the full length to be done and all that good stuff before we start looking into any touring. So we're kind of staying local, and it's usually when the international touring acts roll through Florida. Those are the shows that we're typically playing.
And tell us a story about Midnight Vice. How long have you guys been around as a band?
Man, so Lakota and I started it back in like 2020, 2021,
Oh,
around that time frame. It was, kind of just after the heat of COVID, I
sure,
guess.
sure.
So it was a different lineup. It was just me and Lakota were the only original members. Had a different guitar player, different drummer, but we were all kids that were super into bands like Enforcer, Skullfist, Cauldron, so we kind of wanted to do something similar, and it wasn't like a super elaborate thought out project, I guess. We were kind of just kids that were meeting up, drinking beer and just jamming, I guess. So we would do open mic nights and whatnot and stuff like that. And then that kind of just lost its way and fell apart. And that was when we got Sam Bean on lead guitar. And then we got Dennis O'Sullivan in on the drums. And from there, that solidified the lineup. And then I think we really started to like pedal to the metal, and we started grinding, writing stuff, looking into recording and doing things like that. And then we did the EP. And after that, it kind of just it was a little overwhelming as to how well the EP did. We were pretty caught off guard. We didn't think it was going to get the international attention that it did.
Wow, wow. So let me ask you, your partner that's that you formed a band with that's still doing it with you. You guys must be pretty tight. You probably like wrote a lot of the material together. So let me ask, when the other guys come in, you guys you willing to let them get involved with the songwriting, or talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, Sam is actually the main composer of all of the music.
Oh, great.
He's predominantly the one that's writing the music. It's just, I mean, we give everybody a fair shot, everybody's got their ideas. But it starts with Sam, and the guitar player that we had before that, he had written "Baptized by Fire," and it was the
Okay.
same thing. We kind of work with the guitars first, and
I
then
would,
from there
yeah,
we. I
I
mean,
would
it's
have,
not
yeah.
it's not like Sam is telling everybody what to play. I think that
No.
he kind of just lays the general foundation down, and then everybody gets to tweak it, or we all collaborate on it, and that's how we get our finished product.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the point I'm making, I guess it makes sense that you guys being the two founding members, be
Mm,
somewhat protective of, the band's sound. And I mean, even you look at some of those influences you mentioned, like
mm.
unless people check the songwriting credits, so they might think Bruce Dickinson, writes all the songs because he's a singer, but it's actually
Right. It's
Steve
all Steve
Harris.
Harris.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much, I think that for me, I always thought that that was kind of how it was supposed to go. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I just can't, I can't imagine coming to Sam and singing something to him and telling him to play guitar. It feels backwards to me. It's
Yeah.
not really how I think is a song should ideally be written, you know?
Yeah,
So we
yeah.
kind of just bounce off each other, you know, he'll throw out some riffs and typically what'll happen is he will throw me a riff for a verse. He'll throw me a chorus, a pre-chorus, or what have you, and then we kind of just slap it all together. And I'll have him send me scratch takes of him playing it, and then I'll just plug up to my little computer and I'll do vocals over it through an interface.
Wow.
And we'll kind of have a basic structure, and then I send it to the group chat of the band, and I say, review this. We're going to bring this in on practice day, and we're going to work on it. And then from there, that's kind of when it becomes a little bit more of the other guys' creativity comes into it, I guess. And they start doing what they want to do over it, and we all just kind of work it all out. You know, someone says, I don't like that. Let's do this instead. You know,
I mean,
I think a lot of bands operate like that, and I think that's probably the most efficient.
oh, sure. And I guess from a singer's point of view, typically you might think as the singer, not only would you be the one writing the songs, but a lot of times you hear singers say, well, I got to sing this stuff. So, I'm writing from, my own life experiences, things I've lived through, because
Oh yeah.
when you sing something, you got to be able to kind of feel it or emote it. Yeah,
Oh yeah. I mean, I compose all of the lyrics. The lyrics are all me. I
sure,
write
sure.
all of my own melodies, you know, and that's my fair share of writing. And I think that that's exactly how it should be done. You know what I mean? It's not like I've got Sam writing lyrics for me or anything
No, no,
like that.
no, no.
We're all very much doing our own part for the justice of the song.
Oh, sure. And I was kind of curious. A band like Midnight Vice, being a metal band and that kind of, and you're influenced by, a band like, let's say, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all these other bands you mentioned. Um, do you guys tend to write like not necessarily from, somebody like writing telling about a day, out of their life? Maybe it's more based on a concept or something you
Yeah.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the lyrical themes are they're pretty all over the place. I've got some lyrics that are based off of real life experiences, and then I've got other lyrics that are just, I could have just been watching a movie or something, and
Oh, sure, sure.
I wanted to
Eh,
write something, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And Tyler, I was curious when you were coming up and what was a point in life when you knew, music is what you wanted to do or you wanted to at least give it a shot?
That's a good question, actually. I didn't start doing music until right up about the time of Midnight Vice. I didn't have like I wasn't in bands all throughout my teenage years, and then finally I got one that managed to stick. Like I kind of got lucky, and like my band just started doing well, like within the first couple of years that I started. I grew up skateboarding. That was what I did all the way
Uh,
up until I was into my 20s, you know. And it wasn't until I got to be like freshly 21 that I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna start doing this band thing. But the way that that even happened was just I would go out with my coworkers every weekend and like we'd go to like karaoke bars and shit. And then I was like, this would be so much more fun if it was like I didn't have to listen to everybody else sing and I just got to do it all the time. So that was when I started. That was when I wanted to pursue music.
and it's kind of interesting. You don't have that typical story of paying your dues and playing the, clubs, early on in
Yeah,
life. And
you know, I mean, I had a band before that, and like that band fell apart, and then the first rendition of Midnight Vice fell apart, and then you know, I still had to eat a lot of shit on the way up, but I
sure.
definitely didn't have it as bad as a lot of other people. You know,
Yeah,
I
I
know a
guess
lot
the
of
point
people.
I guess the point I was getting ready to make is, you don't have a typical story, and that's all right because I would imagine it's got to be a great feeling, that being the case, that when you do form Midnight Vice, that success. I don't want to say came right away, but you know what I mean. You're at this point now in
Mm,
your life where people are a fan of what you do. They're coming to live shows. They're
yeah,
buying the music.
it's insane. Yeah, man. I mean, I go to shows. my girlfriend and I, we just went and saw Metallica, and I saw people there in my t-shirts, which is like nuts.
Wow.
You know, like
That is a sign of success. You go to a Metallica concert and somebody's wearing your
yeah,
shirt.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a super cool feeling, and I'm super grateful for that. Absolutely.
And
Um,
it's funny you bring up the skateboarding thing because so oftentimes you'll hear that skaters are like into either metal or punk music.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my whole sense of like taste for music was entirely shaped around skateboarding. Punk rock, definitely very punk rock and skateboarding go very much hand in hand. So I was listening to bands like Black Flag, The Misfits, Minor Threat. You know, I
Yeah.
liked bands like that, and then also I liked Metallica, I liked Iron
Sure.
Maiden, I liked Megadeth, I liked all that stuff too. You know, and just from my dad, you know, I liked Motley Crue and Skid Row and all that glam stuff too. So I had a lot of different elements that I was exposed to, you know, and at that time, I don't know, I wasn't involved with the music scene enough to know that like the glam guys don't like the thrash guys, and the thrash guys don't like the punk guys, and the death metal guys don't like the black metal. I didn't know any of that. I didn't have any boundaries with that, so I fucking liked all of it, you
But
know.
you're
And I
you're you're more you're more authentic, I think, that way, not having any so-called
Yeah,
boundaries.
you know, yeah, I agree, and I feel that way too. I think a lot of people just talk shit about some other subgenre
But
just
you
because.
look at a band like Motley Crue. Okay, a lot of what they do, they got that look, they got that glam look. But if you followed them at all throughout their career, and I have, I'm a huge Motley fan myself.
Mhm,
Um, they like you go back to the first album, Too Fast for Love. That was almost a punk album, you know.
mhm,
Uh, um, then they had the glam album. They or they like look like they're from the street. I heard
yeah,
in an interview Nikki Sixx talking about like when they did Shout at the Devil. He's like, you know what? I want to look scary. I want to have all this blood and red and black and scare people. I mean, he went to the
that,
point of thinking this stuff out.
that album to me, that Shout at the Devil album to me is a heavy metal record. I don't
Yeah.
classify that really as a glam record, you know. And
No,
for
that's what I'm saying. And if you look at every album they've ever put out, they had
yeah.
a different look for every album.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can tell, you can see a picture of Motley Crue and you can see what
Shout at the
era.
Devil era. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can see what era it is, which is like, you know, with the first album, they kind of got like that New York Dolls look, you
Sure.
know, and then in 1983, they've got like this kind of almost like a Venom look to them, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
then by what's the one after that? The night Theater of Pain, they look
Yeah,
like
Theater of Pain, that's the glam record when Girls, Girls, Girls.
yeah, 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 and so that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that, you
Well,
know.
that's what I love about that particular band. They're ever evolving. You never know what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be kick ass.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And you even mentioned Metallica. And when I remember when they put out "And Justice for All," they were very young at the time, and you'd see pictures of those guys, on their skateboards and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's a pretty big thing, back in the day. Yeah. Now,
Oh yeah.
Tyler, did you always know you wanted? Well, you talked a little bit about doing the karaoke thing, but I was curious
Mhm.
when you'd get up there and you were doing karaoke. Did you ever have any of your friends or family members tell you, you got a pretty good voice? You ever think about being a singer? Is
All the
that kind
time, yeah. All the time. That was like I think that had a pretty big influence
Oh,
on
wow.
me wanting to even pursue it, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure I
Yes.
didn't sound great all the time, but like I was told I was great and I was like,
Oh,
"Oh
I
man,
mean, that's
maybe."
how a lot of people fall into that. I mean,
Yeah.
or you hear stories from a lot of guys talking about, well, I started out, playing the guitar. That was my thing, but then when we formed a
Mhm.
band, everybody's telling me that I had the best voice or whatever, and so it kind of fell on
Yeah.
me. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, some people just don't realize how skillful they are in that moment, you know. It's kind of easy to kind of overlook that, you know, especially in the singing world, you know, if you're not really involved in any sort of music, you know, and you want to be a singer, it's easy to get fooled with a lot of these highly produced uh vocals that like you hear on everything. It's everywhere, you know, and it almost makes you feel like you don't even sound good, you know. And I learned that especially when I went into the studio. I heard the transformation of my voice, just through, being produced in the studio. And I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, that's crazy, like, and you see it too with other people that sound great on the radio but suck live, it's so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors there. So I think if you hit the notes the majority of the time, I'd say you're a good singer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've kind of proven this as far as the karaoke thing. It's nothing to laugh at about because I think that's probably first of all gave you your nerve to attempt to be a singer, and
Mhm.
you get a little bit comfortable with being up there and other people watching what you do. But talk
Yeah.
about the experience, for Midnight as Midnight Vice, the very first time you guys played your very first show. You get up on stage for the very first time. You're singing your songs that you wrote. These are you're not singing somebody else's songs
Mhm.
anymore, and you've got that crowd that's cheering you on.
It was so I had from this point, so from the karaoke point into like the point of doing music. Midnight Vice wasn't the first band. I was in a different band at the time,
Okay.
and that was kind of like all covers for the most part. We had wrote a couple songs, but it's nerve wracking for sure. But I think that I was the thing with the band that I was in before Midnight Vice was it was very much more hard rock oriented. It was
Okay.
very like Guns N' Roses type stuff, and I'm not a huge Guns N' Roses fan. So basically, I met up with this guitar player who loved Guns N' Roses, and I was like super into like Skid Row, Motley Crue, and he's like, I love those bands too, but I really love Guns N' Roses, and then it kind of just turned into a lot of Guns N' Roses oriented stuff. So I wasn't super hyped on the stuff that we were doing, and I didn't love the songs that we had wrote. But like with Midnight Vice, when we started writing, I was like super confident in our stuff, and I was like super proud of it. So like to play them out live for the first time was like super cool. I'm
Yeah,
super.
talk about the making of the EP. Like, it sounds like you went in. Did you record this at home in a professional studio or what?
So actually, we recorded the EP. We tried to record it like at least three times, I think. So we had tried recording it ourselves, did not go well. We had tried recording it in like with a friend, did not go well, and then we tried recording it in like a mm, higher quality home studio, and that didn't go well either. So we've forked over the big bucks, and we went to a real studio here. It was in Sarasota, Florida. Paid a lot of money. We spent a lot of time on it. We didn't cut any corners on it. And that was the product that we got. And we were super happy with it, super proud of it. It came out exactly how I wanted it to.
Yeah, well,
Um,
we know anything worth doing is worth doing over again. And what I mean by that is, you often hear the saying that you get what you pay for. I mean,
that
for,
is,
for example, you could go to McDonald's and have a Big Mac, or you could go out, pay a few more dollars more, and have a more of a fine dining experience. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm glad you guys kind of had that mindset because, again, I don't imagine any of you guys are real rich, but yet you want to
Mhm.
deliver a quality product to your fans. And if it takes 5 years as opposed to, hey, let's just rush this out there, I
Mhm.
think that's why people are responding because you deliver the goods, as Judas
Oh
Priest would
yeah.
say. Yeah.
Well, we developed that mindset super early on. That saying, "You get what you pay for," 100% factual in terms of studio. The product that you are putting into, like, it entirely depends on how much money and effort you're willing to put into it. And a lot of kids that I talk to nowadays are asking me, they're trying to like they're like, oh, I want to do like we're trying to record some demos so we can get a record deal and blah blah. And I'm like, don't even waste your time. Don't even take that money that you're going to spend on demos and go pay for a real fucking album. Like it's not worth it. The thing is that record labels they don't take the time to develop a band anymore. This it's not like it was back in the day. A
Yeah.
lot of these record labels, they want a product that is ready to go. They're going to pick you up and they're going to take your music and they're going to slap it on a record, and that's how it goes.
Mhm.
They're not going to pay for your studio time. They're not going to send you to this. They're not going to fly you out to LA so you can go work with fucking whoever. It doesn't work like that. You are entirely responsible for the quality of your music, and all that money that you're putting into demos is just nobody's going to listen to it
Yeah.
probably. You know, I mean, that's how I felt, and I'm not. I feel like this primarily applies to the style of music that Midnight Vice does because we have that power metal, like lots of reverb type deal thing. It's a little different if you're like a black metal band or like you know, a trashier like thrash death metal band. A lot of those bands can get away with stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but for what we were trying to achieve, we just it would have sounded awful if we had cheaped out.
And of course, I love to ask everybody, like, tell me the story, but how you came up with the name Midnight Vice.
So, like I said, this was back in the days of kids just jamming out and having a
Sure.
good time. We our first gig was at an open mic night, if you can call it a gig. It was we went to this open mic and we played three songs. We had 15 minutes, and I don't even think we had an original song yet. I think it was all covers, but we were trying to figure out names, and Midnight Vice. If I don't know if you know this, but Midnight Vice is the song name of an Enforcer song.
Oh, okay, okay.
So us being big fans of Enforcer, we were like, oh yeah, we'll say
Oh,
Midnight Vice.
I see the connection
We're
now,
like,
Enforcer.
we're
Yeah,
like we're like that would be such a cool band name, and nobody's gonna know who that because nobody in Florida really knew who Enforcer was. The amount of Enforcer fans in Florida are very very few and far between. So we figured if we went to this open mic and we called ourselves Midnight Vice, like nobody's gonna know where that name came from, and it sounds so cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we just never changed it. And then we put our EP out, and like I said, we were not expecting international attention, and Europe is probably where the majority of Enforcer's fan base is. So they caught it like immediately, and we're like, ah, fuck, we got caught red-handed,
I know we're
That's what
early
it
in
is.
the game here, but any talk about since there's been that kind of response of um, trying to get over to Europe, or
Not yet. No, no talks of it yet. We haven't really had an opportunity
sure.
to look into it, but I'm hoping that the record label now that we're signed with RPM Roar, and they're over there, maybe somewhere down the line an opportunity will come up
That would
for
be
us.
great. And so, Tyler, it's been great getting to know you. Like I said, I'd love to have you back down the line when you have something else to promote. Why don't you tell people where they can find you and the band online, and if they want to purchase the EP, how they can do that?
Absolutely. You can find us on Facebook. It's just Midnight Vice. Instagram is Midnight Vice Official. You can find us on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. And if you are looking for any form of media, may that be vinyl or CD, you can go ahead and just head to RPM Roar's website. They have a European website as well as a US website.
Okay, well, thanks again, Tyler. I want to thank you and your publicist, Dave, for setting this up. He's done
Absolutely.
me a lot of great interviews over here, so thanks, Dave.
Yeah, man.
And this should be going up in about a day or two, so I'll hit you up on your Facebook page and let you know once it posts, okay?
All
And
right,
feel
sounds
free to
good, man.
share it, my friend, okay?
Okay, yep. Thank you for having me, dude.
Thanks for being my first guest. It's great having you, Tyler. Take care, my friend.
Yes, sir. You too. Bye.